Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mom's Talk Climate. It's Heather McTier-Tony. I'm so excited to see you all for our regular Mom's Talk Climate opportunity to share what's going on with Mom's Clean Air Force, what's happening around our country, and to be moms that are talking climate. We're going to give just a few moments here to get up and refreshed and started. So I hope everybody has had a wonderful day. We're taking a deep breath, breathing in fresh, clean air, and getting ready to talk climate, what's going on here at Mom's Clean Air Force and what's happening around our country and even in your neck of the woods. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are joining our podcast and are watching us on video, we are in our Washington, D.C. offices today. So it's nice to join you from here in our nation's capital at Mom's Clean Air Force HQ. And so happy that you all are able to listen in as to what's going on here at Mom's Talk Climate. And today is a really exciting day because it is healthy. We're celebrating Healthy Schools Day. We're going to talk about what does a healthy school look like for our children. We're going to have a special guest coming on and really having a chance to really dig into what we need to look for as parents in our schools that signifies a healthy or an unhealthy environment for our children in our community. So we're going to get into that in a few moments, but first I want to dig in to what's going on and what's been happening around our nation. And while you are watching us or you're listening to us, send us a note. Let us know you're here. Let us know you're a part of Mom's Clean Air Force and that you like what we're doing. You can always contact us on our website at momscleanairforce.org, or you can connect with us on Twitter at Clean Air Moms and always on Facebook at Clean Air Moms. So please shoot us a note wherever you're watching this and say, hey, checked in, saw what you all are doing, really excited about it, and we want to stay engaged with you, and we hope that you want to stay engaged with us. So a couple of shout outs for today. Last week, I spent time in Houston, Texas. And if you've been watching what's happening on the news and you saw last week that there were significant chemical fires that took place in the Houston, Texas community and area. In fact, some of the visuals that I saw were plumes of black smoke that were going over communities and neighborhoods. We had an opportunity to go and visit in Houston, Texas for a couple of reasons. One, we're looking to come into Houston, Texas as part of the Mom's Clean Air Force team. So we're really excited that we're going to be on the ground in Houston. Yay! To all of our Houston moms. We have 7,500 members of Mom's Clean Air Force in the Houston, Texas area, and over 58,000 members of Mom's Clean Air Force across the country, across the state of Texas. So Texas is well represented, and we want to be there on the ground with you. So we're excited about Houston, Texas. But we were also there to advocate on behalf of those 7,500 moms that are in the area and to advocate on behalf of their children. So we were testifying at the Harris County Commissioners meeting to talk about the impacts of air pollution and the dangerous chemicals that are in the air as a result of those fires, what it does to children's ability to breathe clean air in and around the areas in which they live and play and learn. And I tell you, being on the ground there was eye-opening. I've been in a lot of places and a lot of communities that are dealing with air pollution every single day, and my heart really went out to those parents and children that really were suffering in the midst of a tragedy in those communities. So not only were we there to testify on behalf of those moms, we were there just to sit and talk to mamas and grandmoms and find out, what was their impression of not only what was taking place, but how can we help? And I enjoyed spending some time actually at a baseball field in Manchester, in the Manchester community in Houston. Shaquila and I, we went and we just had an opportunity to share with some moms about raising boys and playing outside, and what our children go through when they are living in communities that are impacted by air pollution. And so those mothers, as we sat there on those bleachers and we watched those boys practice their best baseball game, yeah, we heard from moms that had the majority of their children experience asthma and experience the health impacts of living in polluted communities. We watched those children run from base to base, and in the background, they're surrounded by smokestacks and surrounded by trucks that were bringing in materials, but that were also emitting very, very dangerous CO2 emissions that are just prevalent in and around that community. Just the air pollution coming from the trucks that were right around the spaces where they were playing ball. It was important for us to realize that every single day there are communities and children that are living in these environments, but also that need our work and our help to make sure that we're doing our best to reduce the impacts of air pollution that our children experience each and every day, and helping to reduce those impacts in every environment that they're in, whether it's their playground or it's their schools, just using every single opportunity that we have to do that. So Houston, Texas, it was a pleasure to be there, and we look forward to being back, working actively with those moms and working actively to bring our entire network together to see and experience every single way that we can partner together. So I see there are lots of folks that have joined us, and I was going to get a couple of shout outs. Hello to our friends at the Center of Biological Diversity. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, Tennessee, I hope the weather is going beautiful there in Franklin, Tennessee. It's a pleasure to have you all joining us as well. The HS Network, thanks you for being with us, and our good friends at the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America. Such a pleasure, and we're just thankful for everyone who not only listens but also participates and finds out what they can do to be a part of Mom's Clean Air Force and get active in your community. So what we do here on our regular Moms Talk Climate is we not only talk about the issues that are happening in and around our communities, we talk about what we can do next, how we can be good armchair activists to every single day make an impact for the children that live in the communities that surround us. And I'm really excited because today we're going to be talking about our schools. We're going to be talking about healthy schools, what you should know and do and look for when you're going into your kids' school. I'm really excited that we have a special guest that's going to be joining us today and talking about this. So I'm going to try to add her on right now. In just a moment, we have Claire Barnett, who's joining us from the Healthy Schools group, and she's going to be coming on here. I'm just going to wait for a second to see if I can get Claire added. I love the all the wonderful opportunities that we have to be and share with everyone. I think I've got her on. And as she's coming up, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Claire. She is doing amazing work in this space. She is the founder and executive director. Hey, there she is. Hi, Claire. How are you?
Hey, Heather. Fine. How are you doing?
I was just talking about you. So I am wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us. I was just sharing a little bit about you. So give me just a second to keep talking about how great you are. Claire Barnett. She's the founder and executive director for a Healthy Schools Network, and she grew it from its roots in New York to now become the nation's premier voice for children's environmental health at school. She's been advancing a very comprehensive policy agenda and looking to foster state and local environmental health coalitions across the country. She is a social entrepreneur, and she previously reported for Time Magazine in New York. She administered rural New York health services. She knows what she is talking about. She has shifted her focus to children's environmental health, really in the aftermath of her child's pesticide exposure at school. Ms. Barnett has an MBA from Westminster Polytech Institute,
Right.
Health Systems Finance, and a BA from Mount Holyoke College. And in 2017, she was honored to receive not one, but 3 national awards. She got the William Kelly Riley Award for Environmental Leadership and Innovation from the American University of Public Policy. She received the U.S. Indoor Air Quality Champion recognition, and the prestigious David P. Hall Award for contributions to public health through science-based advocacy from the American Public Health Association. So all of that to say, we are talking about a really, really fabulous person who not only knows firsthand what she's talking about, but who cares about all of our children. And we are so happy to have her as a guest. Claire, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Heather. Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me?
Can hear you perfectly fine.
Great. I saw a comment that somebody
hear
put
you.
on. Anyway,
Can hear
so
you.
that's
Great.
Well, thank you. I am so glad to be here with you on the 17th Annual National Healthy Schools Day. And beyond that, to thank Mom's Clean Air Force for partnering with us on social media now for the last 4 or 5 years. It's just been terrific. We really appreciate it.
Oh, we love it. And we love you. We love that all that you're doing for our kids. And, you know, we want to jump right into this because I was touring some schools in my area. I'm from Mississippi. I have a child that's in daycare and I have a child that is in middle school. So I go through the schools quite often. And I noticed that in my son's school, the daycare has done a couple of things to make sure, for example, that there's no idling in the area right where you're dropping off the kids, and that the kids are in a really good environment, so they're breathing healthy air. You know, they send out these notices and everything to the parents, and I noticed they do that for our really young kids. When I am at my daughter's school, and my daughter is in junior high school, it's a little different atmosphere because the buses are right up front. So the area that the children are standing in, you know, I noticed when I'm going through that area, it is a bit congested. I noticed when I'm walking up and down the hallways, you know, there are things that I don't necessarily see in the other schools. So I just want you to talk a little bit about, tell me and other moms, like, what are things we should be looking for in our children's school when we're there every day, or some things maybe we should be noticing.
Right. Well, everybody knows that you just can't walk through a school whenever you want to do it. So you really need to take advantage of, you know, when you are able to get in the front door and get to the front office, or if you have a meeting with your child's teacher, like a teacher conference some afternoon after school, or you're doing a pickup, there are some easy things you can look at. So first of all, you want to look at the outside of the building. Is it wet? Is it damp? Are there signs of water damage anywhere? Are there any cracks in the foundations? Are the windows in good shape? Typically, you know, one of the other things you want to look at is where the fresh air intakes are. So if there are trash barrels and idling vehicles right next to open windows or next to air intakes, you're going to have problems with indoor air, no matter how clean the inside of the school building is. So when we go into a school building, we want to look for something like the entryway, right? You get past the idling vehicles. Maybe there's a no idling posted. I know that Mom's Clean Air Force has been great on the anti-idling. So in the entryway, you don't want to see a carpeted entryway. You want to see, you know, terrazzo floor, a hard surface floor that's easy to keep clean. But you want something called a walk-off mat. And so a walk-off mat is very, very specific in large.
A walk-off
mat. And it's very specific in large buildings. So when you go through the front door, it's about 4 feet wide and maybe 3 or 4 strides long, adult strides long. What happens is all those grubby little sneakers go right over the walk-off mat and knock off the first bits of dirt and sand and gravel and whatever else got picked up off the street or off the sidewalk. So that's the first thing to look at. The next thing you're going to notice is whether or not there are any odd odors inside the building. So the smell of clean is no odor. If you're smelling chlorine, if you're smelling chemical odors, if you're smelling perfumes, if you're smelling air fresheners or whatever, the building's not clean. I mean, your nose is part of what's helping you decide how the environment is. So you really want the smell of clean is no odor. It should smell fresh. If it smells kind of damp and dusty and musty, there's a problem with the cleaning. So if you're walking down the hallway, the next room you might go by, or the door is locked, we hope, is a custodial closet. So if you are just walking by and you smell strong chemical odors coming out of a locked closet, you want to talk to somebody about that, because it might indicate that the custodial closet is not vented to the outside. It might also indicate the materials they're using to clean the building are highly fragranced or are very harsh chemicals. What people can use is third-party certified green cleaning products. And when they do that, they have a reduced, they tend to be lower emission and fragrant. Not all of them are fragrance-free, but many of them are fragrance-free. So right now, there are about 12 states that actually require or actively promote green cleaning products in schools. That's really terrific. But beyond that, many, many individual school districts across the country do that. I have grandchildren in Colorado, in public schools in Colorado, in charter schools. And most of the schools that they've been in, there's no requirement in Colorado, but they're still using green cleaning products. So you do have to ask.
So let me ask the question. Is there a way that as parents, is there a way that we can find a list of those states that are requiring it, and then B, find a list of the products that maybe we could suggest to our PTAs or to our school administration as what are some good opportunities? So, where can we find that information?
So if you go to our homepage, healthyschools.org, and I think Alex may have just posted it to the conversation for me, you'll find a book called, I'll show you a picture of it. This book, it's called Towards Healthy Schools, Reducing Risk to Children. And in it, we have a list of policy indicators for all the states. So you can look up what your state is doing about indoor air quality in schools. You can look it up on what they're doing about reimbursing for school construction and renovation, for example. You can look up what they're doing on safer pest control. So there are a lot of great things in there. So we try to produce that every 3 or 4 years. So this one that's up online right now on our website, on our homepage, was released in August of 2016, and it's pretty current. Things have not changed a lot on the policy side in the last couple of years. In terms of where you find green products, what you want moms and your listeners to do is to look for not the products you use at home, because school buildings are too big for those products. They were not really economical. You need to look for commercial scale and ask your folks, your custodial people, to look for Green Seal certified cleaning products. The other label is Eco Logo, which is now owned by United Laboratories. So New York State is one of those states where I'm based that requires all public and all private schools to use third-party cleaning products. And the state actually publishes a list of preferred or state-approved green cleaning products on the state website. So the best way to find that is go to our green cleaning website, and I'm sure Alex will put it up for you so everybody can take a look at where that is and take a look what's in there. If you are a mom who's in a school district where you don't think they're using green products, first of all, you ask. Second of all, you can verify, ask them to open the custodial closet. And if they're using a certified product, it'll say that on the outside of on the label. And if they're not, we have a startup kit online for schools to get started, because it's really easy to do. Anyway, so walking through the next room, getting past the custodial closet, the next room you might go by is the boys or girls room. You might go past a lavatory. And if it smells like an old gas station, you've got a problem. Again, you need places where there's a lot of water in use, are likely to get musty and moldy, and where little kids use a bathroom, there are plenty of bodily spills, as we say. And it's hard to keep those areas clean, but you can still do it. and it's important to do that for all children.
Now let me throw in here another question, because
Sure.
you know, as moms, you're right. We're our noses are a little used to the bodily smells, but
right.
also, you know, sometimes I think we may take for granted, if we're going past the boys' locker room, that it's supposed to smell like the boys' locker room, and not realizing that we should be looking out for some things that could potentially be hazardous to our kids. So, you know, I think it's really good to drill in on that point, that clean doesn't have a smell. At the same time, you know, we know with 16-year-old boys that have gone to football practice might not smell as fresh.
Yes, it is very fresh sometimes, but you know, it'll also go away, it'll dissipate. And so fresh air is about getting ventilation. It's about venting dirty air to the outside and making sure there's a good supply of fresh air and clean air. The other thing to watch out for is sometimes schools have, and I saw one in Washington, D.C. a few years ago when I was touring a school, and they made enormous efforts to have a very green, super clean building. But they had put these cake toilet deodorizers in the lavatories. Well, they're asthmagens. They're putting out terrible chemicals. And so they really didn't realize they were trying to reduce the impact of asthma in the building, which is a good thing to do. So they had super ventilation, but they had just installed in all the lavatories something that does cause asthma. So they sort of undid some of that, but they were able to correct it. They pulled them out, and things are much better now. So the next thing you might do when if you get past the laboratory and past the gym and past the locker rooms and so forth, you might get to a classroom. And there are plenty of things to look for in a classroom. So if you're looking at our Tips for Tours guide that we've posted online, I think you all have a copy of it too. There's some pictures there of things you can look at. And in a classroom, you really want to make sure there aren't any plants or pets in the classroom. I think everybody wants to believe that plants are great for the indoor air. They may or may not be. What they are good for is creating moisture and a place for pests. The same thing with those rabbits and chickens and goldfish and lizards and everything else you can find in a classroom these days. Pets really don't belong in classrooms. There are plenty of ways to see pets otherwise, but that's not a good thing to do. You also don't want them, books and papers and pets and everything else stored on top of the ventilation system. So in many school buildings, there's, people will be familiar with this, there's a box, if you will, a locked-in box of a ventilation system, and have vents across the top, and the windows probably don't open, right? And so if that's covered with books and papers, you're not going to get any fresh air into the room. The other thing you might want to do is take a look at the ceiling. Look at the ceiling and see if there are any leaks, any dampness, any mold, any moisture. Again, if you look at our tips for schools, tips for touring your school, there's some pictures of moldy ceiling tiles. Mold will make people pretty sick, and it doesn't affect everybody the same way. So for some people it's brain fog, for some people it's bloody noses and itchy eyes and rashes and sneezes and coughs and getting irritated airways and asthma. There are plenty of side effects from molds, and some of them are quite dangerous. So it's a good idea there's no such thing as a mold-free school, because molds are everywhere all the time. There's no mold-free house, there's no mold-free school, there's no mold-free anything. We all evolved with molds, but you don't want them infesting your children's workplaces, really.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Claire, your site healthyschools.org has a tremendous amount of resources that I hope all of our listeners and watchers have an opportunity to go and to review, because you're right, it's very important that we're taking the time to research this information, but also go back to our own schools and take this information and share it with other parents in our administration. I'm just looking at a couple of questions that are coming up sort of in our last couple of minutes. we've had some questions about water. There are a lot of concerns about water in
Yes.
school, I'm sure from news. Can you talk to us a little bit about, what we should look for or how we should address concerns surrounding water in our children's schools?
Well, I think the hot issue right now is, the hot issue right now is lead in school drinking water. And right now, we've got 50 states plus the District of Columbia. There are 9 states right now that mandate that all public schools test at the tap for lead. Those states are Illinois, Maryland, Minnesota, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. It's considered a state for purposes. There are 17 more that are voluntary. And again, we've got a checklist up online so you can check out what your state is doing. That means there are 25 states rather, that are actually truant. They're not doing anything. So first thing you want to do is check out what your state is already doing. It's important to figure it out. If your state is one of the states that's either required or voluntary, again, there's 17 voluntary and 9 required. One of the things you might want to do is find out what your school did. If it's a mandate in your state, then they have to have tested at the tap, and you have a right to see the results. If it's a voluntary program, then they're not required to test at the tap for lead. And if they're not required to test, then you could still ask them, well, did you do it? And can we see the results? You could also say, well, why haven't you tested at the tap? Because we'd really like to know. What's interesting about this is that people have not been testing it, that they haven't been required for forever, really, to test at the tap. And because of that, schools have a remarkable amount of lead. We did some preliminary, I'm based in New York State. There were some preliminary studies done in 2015 and 2016 before the 2016 law went into effect. And they found some really remarkable things. EPA has recommended the action level, used to recommend the action level at 20 parts per billion lead in school drinking water and childcare drinking water. The actual safe level is 0 parts per billion, according to the Academy of Pediatrics. But what our schools were finding across New York State were hundreds of parts per billion lead, thousands of parts per billion lead. And even some old fixtures and old bubblers and old drinking fountains that were even once upon a time lined with lead. So tens of thousands of parts per billion lead. So you can't taste lead, you can't smell lead, you really don't know that you've got it until you look. The other thing that happened here in New York after the law passed here was that we had some parents who were a little bit panicked. Well, my child forgot to bring his bottled water to school. Is he going to be all right? And our response was, well, your school at least has tested, so they know something about what's in the water. Have you had your apartment tested? Right? So I think it's a tough issue for everybody. There is a lot of lead in all plumbing systems, and so it's almost impossible to get away from it. What I do know is it's a pretty expensive process. It's not, you have to have training to know exactly how to do the testing at the tap, number one. EPA has great guidance documents on that. They're very clear. But it's a process. And the first water draw has got to go out to a qualified lab. Then it has to come back to the school. Then they have to figure out what to do with it and so forth. It's not simple. New York State, in the first couple of years of the program, has spent about $40 million statewide to test taps in all the public schools, including all of New York City public schools. And the last time we looked, I think the cost of permanent remediation, which means pipes and fixtures and installed filters, it was running about $30 million.
Wow.
So,
well, I know all of our schools don't have that. I know our children are absolutely worth it. It's so important, though, to recognize just, that this is an investment. It's an investment in our kids, and that there are places that are taking these investments and taking it seriously. I love what is going on and what's happening, and I know we're coming to the end of our time. I want to make sure that I give folks the things that they can be doing today and every day to celebrate, that this is National Healthy School Day, that there are some things that we want our armchair activists to be doing, and that's everyone who is watching, who's watching, who's listening. You have some great resources on your website. So as we close out, everyone, I want you to make sure that you go to the healthyschools.org website, that you look at the resources and the tips for touring your schools, and make a commitment to go and tour your child's school using these resources. A couple of other things you can do is there's a sample op-ed that they have, Women, Children, and the Environment, what's happening at your school. I think that's an important thing that we can take a look at and we can do. And also, there's some great things that our partners are doing. I've seen some of the comments that have come up celebrating not only National Healthy School Day, but through the resolutions that have been passed in different places. I see there was a joint House resolution that was passed commemorating National Healthy Schools Day in Tennessee. I'm seeing some things that are happening across the country. And as always, you can and should check in with our Moms Clean Air Force site, because we keep a list of resources and partners and activities that are taking place that you who are watching and listening can take part in each and every day.
I want to leave,
so Claire,
if I can I want to leave your listeners with one more thought here, that we've talked a lot about how important the environment is. What I do want to make sure everybody understands is the quality of the indoor environment in the school will absolutely affect your child's health, thinking, and ability to learn. If your child is healthy at home and kind of subpar at school, there is a school environmental problem and you must attend to it. You can't take no for an answer. It's your child's education. It makes a big difference. And the best study that came out was at the Harvard School of Public Health. And that's a whole nother issue. We should do another interview, Heather.
Absolutely, Claire. We have got to get back together. We're going to definitely do this again. Thank you so much for joining us. I have taken some notes. I'm going to go make sure we have a walk-off mat at our school.
Absolutely.
That's my to-do that I wrote down on my little list here. And I hope you who are watching and who are listening from wherever you are, that you've gotten some notes and some things that you can do. Thank you all so much. Claire, it's been a pleasure. And to all our watchers and listeners, thank you for joining us for this edition of Moms Talk Climate. We will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.